Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to write the design document for your assignment 1. So this is essentially your assignment 1 sample design document and program. Okay, so this is a sample. So for assignment 1, you are required to write a program that reads some input and does some calculations. Okay, so if you read your assignment document requirements, that's what it says. You have to be able to read some input and do some calculations and output something to the user. So starting from the top, you want to make sure you make a copy of the algorithmic design document and you change the title on the top to reflect your assignment. In this case, it says assignment 1 sample. And then you go on down to fill it out. In my case, I have a video here, which is this video that you should watch, and a program, the Py program, which is a Python program. And this document itself is a design document. Okay, so starting with the program description, you want to write 1 or 2 lines about what your program will do. For this sample assignment, we will create a chatbot program. The program will ask the user 2 questions and respond accordingly. And the computation will be done on a number they enter. So you can do any calculation you want, come up with something appropriate. Do not use this example. Do not use any chatbot examples. Do any calculations you would want. It could be interest calculation. It could be conversion from centimeters to inches, whatever it may be. So many calculations you can do. The sample run is how the program will look when it is run at the end. So when your program is written, how would you like it to look? So this is from working from the end. So I would like my program to output something. And this gets you thinking about what exactly do you want it to output and how do you want the prompts to look. What do you want to read from the user? What do you want to calculate? And what do you want to output? More importantly, what do you want to output? And of course, in order to figure out what to output, you must know what to calculate, right? So it outputs a welcome message. It asks the user, what is your name? And you can see that the one in blue is the input. And you actually need to enter the input. That is what a sample run is. And in the next line, it says hello, and then it uses the user's name. It is so nice to meet you. So if you enter Sally, it's supposed to say Sally here. If you enter Mike, it's supposed to say Mike. If you enter GD, it's supposed to say GD, right? What is your favorite number? And again, user input. Okay, don't say the user input something. I want the actual user input because that is what defines a sample run. And then you echo that saying 5 is my favorite number too. So if they entered 8, it should say 8 is my favorite number too. And then did you know 5 plus 5 is equal to 10, 5 times 5 is equal to 25. So some kind of simple calculation is what we are doing here and outputting a message. And then it was nice chatting with you. That's the end of the program. And you can have a couple of different sample runs to show me a variety of how you're going to do, how your program could look with different types of input. And then we start with the actual design, identify and list all of the user input and their data types. So what is the input that you're reading from the user? In this case, we are reading the name, which is a string, right? There's no numbers here. And then you're reading a number, which is an integer. Those are the only 2 things that you're reading from the user as input. So under input here, you would say name as a string and number as an integer. Integer is a whole number, right? By now, if you have looked at data types, you know what integers are. Integers are just whole numbers. Then it says, well, what is your output? So the key here is the name, which is what you would want to call that variable, right? Something like that. A number, any number. In this case, it's just a random number, so we call it number. But if it is something like price or length in inches, you want to call it appropriately. Don't say number for every number because then you wouldn't know what number it is. Identify, list all of the user output. What are we getting from this program? I double the number and I square the number. So I have 2 outputs. And so I have 2 variables for that, double num and square num. Both are integers, so as ints. What calculations do you need? Well, if I'm going to double the number, I need to take the number and add it to itself. So double num equals number plus number, and square num equals number times number. Those are the only 2 calculations I need. Then we start with the actual design. And if you look at the bottom of this document, there are some verbs that you should really use for all of these things. When you do different things, when you output, it would be display. When you declare variables, it should be declare. When you do calculations, it should be set. When you read input, it should be input. And then in the next assignment, we'll see more about the if statements as well. So display a welcome message, declare name as string and number as int. Those are the two inputs. Display what is your name, output is green, input into name, display their name in a hello message, which is echoing the input. Display what is your favorite number, input that whatever they enter goes into number. Display a message saying that's my favorite number 2 and echo the number. Set doing the calculation double num to number plus number, square num to number times number. And then display all of that stuff, number doubled, number squared, with a message and a goodbye message. So this kind of is an algorithm. And the purpose of the algorithm is so when anybody looks at it, they should be able to write the code in any language. It doesn't matter whether it's Python or C++ or whatever, right? So that's kind of how the algorithm should be written. I really want you to look at these and try to follow this format. Okay, once you have that written, then you should take this, use this to write your program. So here's the replit that I've written for this. And notice we have a header on the top. You can use this. I have my sample in this document that we just looked at. You can go in here and you can, copy and paste the header and things like that, but you really should be using this header and you should be replacing my name with your name, your assignment, your date, what does it do, what does it take as input, what does it give as output, and any sources that you might have used, any help that you might have gotten. So you start with the top, always add comments. I want you to say this is the main function. Okay, so we always start with def main. This is define the main function. Make sure you take care of the indentation. It should be indented at least here. It doesn't have to be all the way here. It should be at least indented here. You declare the name and number. Remember, those are the inputs. The string is declared like this. The number is declared as 0. The string is declared with double quotes, nothing inside. Then these are the outputs. So these are variables declared. And so here's how you should have some comments. Variables declared. Okay. And here is the welcome message. So just add a comment that says welcome message. Input name and echo input name. So you read input name from the user, put it into name. You say, hello, name. It is so nice to meet you. Notice how we are separating everything with a comma. That's a print statement. Then you read the number. Notice how we convert the number to an int, whereas in the string, we didn't have to convert it. So it shows you that Python by default reads everything as a string, and then we have to convert it to a number because I want to do some calculations with it. And then you print the number and say, hey, that's my favorite number too. And then we take the number and add it to itself and put it into double num. We multiply it, put it back into square num. So we have two variables, double num and square num, that have some calculations done. And then we print it out. Notice how we print it out. Did you know is a string separated by comma with the variable, plus is a string. And notice the double quotes. All of these little things are very important when you write your statements. So if you miss any of these, you're going to get an error that says, I have no idea what you're talking about. This is syntax error, right? So the string inside double quotes, then a comma. This is the variable, then a comma. Then this is a string again, the plus, then a comma. Then a number, which is a variable, then the equal to sign. So it's going to say, did you know? And then it's going to print 5, and then plus 5, for example, equals, and then the whatever the value of double num is, and then a question mark. And this simply says, don't put any unwanted spaces in between. Separate all this stuff with nothing, which is what that is. Okay, so if that doesn't make sense right now, that's fine. That will eventually make sense. Then you have the next statement that says, did you know number times number equals, and print square num. And then, of course, the last final thank you message. Okay, so try and follow this program. make sure you do every one of these steps starting from the design document. That way you will actually have completed it correctly. And when it comes back with feedback, there'll be less things for you to fix. So just follow this and then write your program in Replit and turn it in.